it may look like kind of strange to discuss ethics in Islamic finance because Islamic finance is derived from Sharia, and Sharia is an expression of the Islamic religion, one of its expression in the form of laws and what to do and what not to do. And so that obviously all religions um, are supposed to be very much ethical, and generally speaking, ethics are always derived essentially from religions throughout history. So we will discuss these few points yet and look how ethics is applied in Islamic finance and how sometimes we don't really look at the appropriate angle sometimes, and we may come up with certain ideas which may seem to be kind of weird. But anyway, let's go on now. And okay. So, Islamic finance, okay, uh, definitely we are talking about the ethics, the system of values, the code of conduct, the moralities, and these things that guide action. And usually, again, what is the behind it as system of values. So if we go on to start with, you know that Islamic finance is only channeled through these three channels, cannot be beyond these three channels. Can be either through sale or lease or sharing. Certainly, as we probably know it, all of us by now, sale is the most commonly practiced in Islamic financial intermediation, in all institutions of financial intermediation. This is the most practiced one of them, that is the sale. And then next come leasing, and next come sale, sharing. So from these channels, we may derive and talk about these value loaded, really, or morally loaded uh, axioms, the axiom of earning and the axiom of financial assets. The axiom of earning relates to earning must be always based on owning a property. So it is a property or asset based. And of course, it expresses an important moral issue, that is, if you want to earn, you can offer your own work and earn by labor, or you can offer your own property and earn by owning. Going beyond that, that really, by what thing would you deserve that earning? There's nothing that no moral expression that allows you to earn without either by your own work or by your own property. So how would you earn? This is here an expression of fairness, the value of fairness with all others. That is the right to earn by or to gain by owning. Of course, not any property may allow you to earn. The property itself must be acceptable morally. And this is an interesting point, that this exists only in Sharia. And I like to dwell a little bit on this here. If يعني, uh, any property that hurts human being must not be really promoted or must not be acceptable for human being. And when I say hurt a human being, we talk about the body, the spirit, the personality, the person, the mind. We talk also about the social environment of the human being, and also about the material environment of the human being. So anything that hurt this should not be considered even a property. If a thing that is harmful, how would you call it a property? And our Sharia is very explicit on this point, that in the definition of what is a property, what is a thing that can be owned or given as a gift or sold or obtained by even as a gift from another or in inheritance or in any other mode of obtaining thing, that thing must not be a thing that hurts human beings as we defined it. So now, what do we deal with the non-Muslims in a Muslim society or in a Muslim economy? When we say, and I was faced, in fact, with that question. I was giving a lecture once, and يعني more than a lecture, really, with a period of discussion on TV, in one of the TVs in one of the mixed countries where both Muslims and Christian in that country, each one claimed that we are a majority, but take it as they are about 50-50. When I said that Islamic finance does not finance anything that is hurtful, someone asked a question, well, how come then that person was Christian? He said, well, I am as a Christian, I want to produce liquor or sell liquor. Would you finance me? I told him, no, we don't finance you, in fact, because as a matter of fact, liquor hurts you. Whether you are Christian or you are Muslim or whoever you are, it hurts your body and it hurts also your environment. Look at how many people are killed as a result of driving while intoxicated, while under the effect of liquor. And look at the other also illnesses and other harms that are caused by liquor. Well, as a Christian or as a non-Muslim, if your religion does not prohibit this, you should really prohibit it on yourself by your rationalism, not by your religion alone. And because your religion does not prevent you from taking liquor, of course, his religion prevented him from taking liquor in high quantities to become really intoxicated. But in small quantities, that I know that Christianity allows it in all its branches of Christianity, except for the Mormons. But all other Christian sects prohibit, allows liquor. So I told him, fine, yani, we cannot finance you, we cannot help you in that, but we tolerate you. In other words, while we consider liquor, if it is in the hand of a Muslim, we don't consider it a property, and we ask him all the time to destroy it, to just drain it in the drainage, and don't even sell it to anybody. We tolerate you because, in respect of your religion, we tolerate that you own liquor, you may sell liquor, and you may buy liquor, although it is hurtful. But since only out of respect of your religion, we allow it. But we are not going to help you in that, and therefore we do not finance it to you, even although it is permissible in your own religion. So the issue of morality still applies, and in fact, it does apply on all human beings, regardless of your religion, because it's a matter of science only. But we definitely believe in coexistence with other people, people who belong to other religions, or even to atheists who don't belong to any religion. We coexist with them, and out of that, we do respect that property to you. So that is why the ruling in our Sharia, if, say, a bottle of liquor is owned by a Muslim, he should destroy it, definitely. But if it is owned by a Christian or a Jew or a Hindu, we wouldn't ask him that he should destroy it. We said, and even if someone destroys it for him, we require him to compensate. For you, this is a protected property. But for a Muslim, it is not a protected property. It is not a property at all. It's not a thing that should maybe either earned or owned or purchased or traded, etc., etc. And this is why we avoid any kind of financing of anything that is not moral. And our criteria of morality is whether it is hurtful or not. I think anything that is hurtful definitely is classified in our religion in the category of lacking moral approval. Now, how the moral screening or the moral issue is applied in the Islamic system, in fact, it is applied through these three screens that are mentioned in this slide. The inner screen. I don't drink because I know drinking is bad, and I know God prohibited drinking because it is bad, and He told us that what is bad in it is a lot more than the some benefits that some people may get out of it. The benefit could be in sale or in anything, in making profit out of it, etc. That is definitely overruled and overweighted by the bad in it. So within the inner conscience of a Muslim, we avoid things that are morally not acceptable. Same argument really applies to cigarette smoking or using tobacco for any other use. Of course, our Sharia, because it is a complete system, it has also a social screening that the Muslim environment around you, you go to the mosque 5 times a day in normal living of any Muslim community. All those people around you, if they noticed on you any kind of anything that has like liquor smell or anything like that, they would also advise you through the principle of al-amr bil-ma'ruf wal-nahy anil munkar, that is ordaining what is acceptable, what is not harmful, and forbidding or attempting to forbid or preventing what is harmful, what is not acceptable. So the social screen is also very strong within the Muslim community, but also beyond that, the law itself, Sharia itself, tells us that liquor use is not permissible. It's mentioned in the Quran. فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ. Stay away from it completely. Don't come close to it even. Not only don't drink it, but don't even come close to it. It's more than not drinking it. And this is why the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that there are 10 things in liquor. And I'm taking liquor as an example. There are 10 things in liquor that are prohibited. Even brewing it is prohibited. Transporting it is prohibited. Offering it is prohibited. It even becomes prohibited to plant the grape if the only use of that grape is for liquor. So that makes it clear whether grape or uh, whatever, could be apple sometimes for other kinds of liquors, and could be also uh, barley for other kinds of liquor also. So whatever it is, we have then really three screens, and it's very difficult to any immoral thing to pass through all these three together. The third one is the law itself. The law itself does not allow liquor to be produced or sold or traded or stored or whatever or offered, etc., etc. And in Islamic banking, definitely, we have the Sharia committee in the Islamic bank. It will not allow at all financing anything that is not acceptable morally. Now, notice that we apply the same rule literally to smoking and tobacco because science confirmed beyond any doubt the hurtfulness of tobacco. So tobacco, we apply the same rule on it, and it becomes subject to all these three screens, including the legal one from Sharia point of view. Now, the how we determine what is harmful or not harmful, it can be really argued that everything in the world, regardless of whatever it is, including the weapons of mass destructions that today America is handing to Israel at the cost of the American taxpayer for Israel to kill this genocide killing in Gaza and in the West Bank of Palestinians. In spite of that, we would say that a normal human being would not accept other than the criteria of weighing the harms with weighing the benefit. I'm sure that these weapons that are sent to Israel at the cost of the American taxpayer, they are the manufacturer of these weapons are making benefit and making profit, and the American history throughout its 200 plus years was most of the times showed that the economy was built so much on wars and on military production. Military production has been all the time the mover of the United States economy throughout its history. And this is very unfortunate. So, recognizing that some people may make benefit from a thing that is harmful in the final analysis, we still take it as we weigh the harm compared with the benefit, and these individual benefits of making profit of it does not really blur our vision to say definitely we do not also on moral basis we do not accept financing any weapons, and Islamic banks abstain from financing any weapons on moral basis, and Sharia committees for all Islamic banks all over the world do not permit, and they always rule that you cannot finance a weapon industry. The axiom of financial assets, that is, financial assets are only recognized in as much as what they represent is acceptable. If they represent debt, so we treat them as debt, and the debt is a real asset, a real property, but it is also a mute property that is unable to generate additional value. But it is yet a real asset, so we deal with it as such. And the ruling of Sharia, because it cannot generate any added value, you cannot claim any added value when your property is a debt. So the debt, because it does not generate additional value, it is not suitable as a base, for instance, for financing. We have a ruling in our fiqh, and for quite some time, in fact, until I got more deep in my own understanding, for quite some time, I was wondering why this ruling in our fiqh, and it is agreed on in all schools of fiqh. They say in the Muslim schools of fiqh that when you create a partnership, you need to put, each partner needs to put his principal. You can make your principal either in physical properties or in money, cash, whatever the money is that is recognized as money, but you cannot take debt as a principal. Until I noticed, after thinking, that the reality is, the reason is a debt cannot generate additional value. It's a mute, although it is real property, but it is mute and it cannot generate added value. And the objective of making a partnership or a company is to produce goods or services that is to generate really added value. So how can we use debt for that? We can use machines as capital contributions. We can use raw materials as capital contributions. We can use also cash, because cash can be transformed into other assets, whether labor service or land or any other requirements for production. But a debt really cannot be used. And let no one of you tell me that, oh, you can collect the debt. But when you collect it, it's no more a debt, it's cash in your hand. So this is why they say in our classical fiqh, very wisely, extremely wisely, that a debt is not suitable as capital contribution. Because once you collect it, it's no more a debt, it's cash in hand. We are talking about debt, not after you change it into or exchange it into cash in hand. So it is an important then moral axiom that we look at this papers, whether they are on entries on computers or they are physical papers, that whatever is written on them, shares or bonds or commercial papers or bill of exchange or the title of a property or anything, whatever you call it, that paper, whether it is physical hand paper that says that, or it is an entry in a computer, the financial securities, we do not recognize them separate from the reality that they represent. And if they represent options, we say that is nothing, because options are not a property to be purchased, owned, sold, or traded. And similar, you talk about futures and other imaginary assets, not true assets that can generate uh, any additional value. So we go to the next slide. Where is the next slide? Okay. Now, oops, what did I do here? So Islamic finance, we find also in it these four uh, moral values, four basic moral values: realism or truthfulness, be realistic in all time, balance, justice, and we will discuss the difference between them, and commitment to no harm, or or at least if you don't create a benefit, at least don't hurt. So the least of it is no harm, but really the objective in it is that you always should create benefit. And we will discuss these four issues one after the other. Uh, these ethical values are incorporated or integrated in the structures and instruments of Islamic finance across the board. That is an important thing. These are not overplanted, over added after you talk about the finance, rather in the process of a financial transaction, you will find ourselves that we will have to express these moral values. And that is an important and interesting, really, point that we should keep in our mind. Okay. Oops. Okay. So the justice, uh, no earning without really creating added value. Isn't that a very important moral value? How would you earn? How would you claim earning if you don't create additional thing? That thing could be only value, or could be only value like increase in value of a thing, or it could be also a physical thing that is, or an abstract thing, physical thing like milk, getting it from the cow, or an abstract thing that is useful, like a computer program, for instance. Earning by owning, both in the positive and the negative side. In the positive, you earn by owning, and in the negative, you do not earn without owning. Both ways, these are uh, fundamental principles of justice. Uh, the other value is you do not earn if you don't create added value. If your property does not create added value, you cannot claim any earning. In order to claim an earning in your property, your property must have created an added value. A simple physical example: if your cow did not give birth to a baby cow, you cannot own a baby cow. Even if your neighbor's cow gave birth to a twin baby cows, still he earns these twin, and you don't get any baby cow. And that is, of course, a moral principle that we all abide by. Another point: risk is not an object to sell. I mean, risk, we try to avoid it, we try to escape it, we try to stay away from it. How come you tell me you sell risk? If I'm going down the stairs and I stepped overstepped one of the steps and fall down for the remaining steps. I am exposed whenever I go down on any scale. I know that I'm exposed to that risk. How can I sell this risk? It's awful, really, to think morally that risk can be sold. How can it be sold? Well, this risk, if I fall down, then people should come and help me. I expect all other people who are on that stairs or nearby to come and help me. If I broke my head, they take me to hospital, they take me to give me treatment, etc., etc. But to expect that I sell that risk is really unbelievable, is so much immoral, and it's only because we are used to it in insurance contract. So we think that it is natural. It is not natural. How can you think of it? It's really something that is beyond imagination. How could you sell a risk? Unbelievable. Uh, and of course, we have a principle which is only in our Sharia, that is, loss should always be distributed by capital contribution. If we are in a partnership, we are a group of partners, and in a partnership, we can only, and if we make a loss, although we may have agreed that profit and loss should be distributed, suppose we are all even in our capital contribution, we are equal, and in one of us is manager, he puts management effort, and we made it in our agreement that we give him 10% more. We give him, like, suppose we are 10 people, we give him 20%, and we divide the remaining 80%. Each one of us will take the other 9 people or whatever will take 9%. So we give him more of the profit, but and we made the text that we give him more of the profit, and also we charge him more of the loss, because he is the manager, who he was the one who caused the loss, and he was the one who contributed to the profit. Of course, in addition to our property, he was the manager. Would that clause be acceptable in Sharia, in the Islamic law? That clause is acceptable only in the part of the profit. Yes, he may deserve, if we make profit, he may deserve an additional part of it. So it's okay. We apply it in the profit that he takes 20%. But in spite of our agreement, notice the rule, we had it once: justice comes before consent, because consent may be sometimes dented, not really full will consent, circumstantial consent. So here we refuse to apply this clause, although it is consensual, in the case of loss, because justice comes first. What is the definition of a loss? If I ask any one of you, and I like really an answer, one of you please turn on your microphone and answer me. What is the definition of loss? What is a loss? Any one of you? Are you guys with me in our discussion, or you are sleeping? A loss is a reduction in the amount that we have, isn't it? When we make a loss, That means we end up at the end of the period, we found ourselves having less than what we had at the beginning, right? Clearly. So the loss, by its definition, then, is a reduction of capital. How can we distribute loss at a different rate than the capital contribution? Definitely, justice requires that loss can only be defined, can only be distributed in accordance to capital contribution, regardless of whatever condition that we have in our contract. This is an expression of justice, and this justice is very important in in the Islamic thinking and in Islamic finance. Uh, Social justice is a different issue, really, isn't it? Can anyone also think of what is the difference between social justice and economic justice? Okay. What is the difference between social justice and economic justice? Is it not fair that a price will be determined by the supply and demand of that commodity or that service? It's fair because you want to sell that commodity or that service, you cannot sell it really at other price than what is commonly accepted in the market. So this market price becomes really the supply and demand, the price, the point of intersection of supply and demand becomes the market acceptable price. But if I am a worker and my wage is only according to the market, say $10 an hour, but that $10 an hour and I am offered 8 hours a week, $80 is not sufficient for me and my family because I have three children and I need to pay $40 or $50 out of it for the rent of the house and another $20 for the bills, and what is left is not sufficient for us to make more than one meal a day. So we stay with only one meal a day, and our stomach will remain empty. We remain hungry for the remaining period of that of each day. Now that is social justice. Can we in any community leave a person hungry? No, we cannot. And that is an issue that makes an obligation on each member of the community. And of course, especially those who are able, those who have two meals to give one of them to another. So those who have three meals to give one of them to another. Those who have above three meals to give also part of that to those who are not able to get except one meal or not even a meal. So that is social justice. Social justice means we don't leave any stomach empty. The moment we leave any stomach empty, then we are violating the principle of social justice. But when I go in the market and sell my labor, the market will not give me more than the amount that I mentioned. So how come? What do we need? We need to adjust the market by outside market distribution. So this distribution that happens in the market is inadequate to perform social justice, although it provides or it expresses economic justice for the employer. How come the employer, by what virtue he should pay me 100, for instance, or 150 if he can get only another one like me for only $80 for the whole day? There's no reason at all that we should force that other guy to do that. But there is a good reason that here we have a human being, not only human being, even a bird we shouldn't be left hungry, or a dog or a cat or any other animal shouldn't be left hungry, and it should be fed. So we need really outside market activity to perform social justice. Market may not be able to perform social justice, although it may perform economic justice. So, social justice is not the job of commercial Islamic financial institution, or any supplier and demander, or any finance supporter. Financial intermediary institution is not the job of it to create social justice, but definitely it is required to be aligned with the economic justice. For social justice, we have other tools that are outside the market. So the market is not the only basic place where we deal with each other. We also see each other in the mosque. We see each other in the neighborhood. We see each other everywhere else, in the club, in any other place, and we are all human beings. We meet each other even in the street. So we do need other institutions to perform social justice. These are outside the profit seeking institutions. And these institutions in our Islamic economic system are the zakah, which is an obligation on every person who is from the lower middle class upward, for income and wealth. For considered lower middle class, if you have like $1,500, that's enough. If you own $1,500 beyond your needs, in addition to what you need for your personal and family expenses, then you are subject to zakah. You have awqaf. We created a lot of awqaf throughout our history, and we always create awqaf also. And awqaf, the main objective of awqaf is to perform social justice. And we have what is called sadaqat, or donations, or charity, that is open again, and is always practiced. And that these are tools for social justice. In addition to this, in fact, we have public fiscal policy. In fiscal policy, when we have, for instance, when we impose taxes, we take more tax from the rich than from the poor. And richness, whether it is in the form of income or in the form of wealth. You know the difference. Sorry. Uh, okay. So I have a medicine. I'll take it after 10 minutes. Anyway, we need to make a break for prayer in about 10-15 minutes. So the tools for social justice are different, and definitely not banks, whether Islamic banks or interest-based banks or whatever they are. These are not the tools of social justice. The tools of social justice, zakah, awqaf, sadaqah, and fiscal policy. Fiscal policy, we take the taxes. When we made taxes on the pattern of zakah, we take them from the rich, and we help the poor through the fiscal policy also. And also the economic system in general is tuned toward the supporting the unfortunate group or individuals in the society. Let's take the next slide. Okay. Okay. Now, one thing which is very, very important, really, in the application of the principle of justice, and many people, when they compare Islamic banks with interest based banks, they overlook this point. The prohibition of interest is the most important value, moral value, that our Sharia and our Islamic finance introduces to humanity. The prohibition of interest, again, is the most important moral value, not because it is taken from the poor, but because we violate a principle of the basic fundamental principle of rights of ownership, which is one of the fundamental human rights issues. We violate that because you are taking from the pure property of the other guy, since your property did not generate any added value. So why riba is really oppression or a form of injustice? Because you are taking an addition and your property does not generate an addition. And if you are taking it, then where are you taking it from? It is really, in reality, from the the property that belongs to some other person, not to you, clearly. So this is the gross injustice that we avoid by prohibition of interest, riba. So interest, this is why, please, you guys, you are all of you are young. Maybe I am four times the age of many of you. Look, please, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Many of us Muslims, we used to think that personal morals are very more important, really, than يعني this is what we call moral, personal moral. You don't drink, you don't do any illicit sex, etc. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the uh, the sinfulness of one small amount of interest of riba is worse, in our standard, is worse than 36 times fornication. The least among these 36 times is a boy making sex with his own mother. So it's the most ugly kind of that thing. And the most ugly kind is still less than 36 times of it is less than a small amount. He said 1 dirham. And 1 dirham is something, yani, today, like maybe $25, something like 25, $30, no more than that. So this is, he said, earning that in riba is a lot worse than 36 times that thing, which is really, that tells us that sometimes we need to look at how bad is the issue of riba, although it has become common and nobody thought of how bad is it. But really, it is extremely bad. It is destroyable in the full sense. So this is why our Sharia paid too much attention. Honestly speaking, more than the attention that we make to the for the prohibition of illicit sex, for instance. It is a lot worse than that. Okay? So the prohibition of riba is what we feel most proud of it, and when what we face all other people, that you guys doing the worst thing in doing interest-based transactions. Uh, what are the objectives of the prohibition of riba? Affirming the Sharia characteristics of realism, that there is no real value added created by your own property, so you don't earn anything. Upholding the sanctity of property rights. Three, disallowing debt trade. Again, you may create debt through sale, for instance, or through leasing, but you cannot trade debt. There is risk in life. You cooperate to make risk, to face risk, or not to face it really, to cure the result of the risk. You cooperate together for that, but you don't sell the risk. Uh, Redirecting or rechanneling the human resources, human and financial resources that are used in debt trading and in interest studies and all this, it's like redirect them toward real production and exchange of goods and services that benefit a human being. So imagine these huge resources that are used in interest, in debt trading, in all these kind of things that we don't accept in Sharia. All these resources, take them back and have them work in producing goods and services instead. This is an extremely important thing. Number six, preventing debt discounting and debt rescheduling for increment. If you want to make debt, I mean, cash the debt before it is due, well, consensually, you may cash it without any increment, without any reduction. The amount of debt is the same amount. And also preventing rescheduling for increment. If you want to reschedule it without increment, but with increment both ways. Now, that's not permissible, and that is one of the objectives of the prohibition of interest. Preventing the use of business finance for what can be tagged as abath, because in Islamic finance, you come to the Islamic bank, for instance, you want to buy a car, they'll finance it. You want to hire a new labor, they can finance it. You want to new labor to do something good. If you want to go and gamble in Las Vegas, for instance, they will tell you no, we don't finance it. But if you go to a conventional bank, to an interest-based bank, and you offer it good rate of interest and adequate collaterals, they will accept to finance you. They don't worry at all. They will give you the money and do whatever you want to do with it. In Islamic finance, we prevent the financial institution from supporting any abath activities. I didn't find the word, a good translation for the word abath, but there is a song to says nothing to do better than nothing. Abath is nothingness, just nothingness. And for us, gambling in Las Vegas is exactly equal nothingness. That's not really a joy, and that's not acceptable at all as a business or as a transaction. So we don't allow it by Islamic finance, that because we are channeling the financing through sale, lease, or creating new companies or expanding existing ones. Because of these channels, we will not be able to finance any nothingness. Okay, again, number seven, sending personal finance to where it belongs. They talk about what is a personal loan. I want a personal loan. Why do you want it? I don't want to tell you, because of something that is in my heart. Could be good, could be bad, could be anything, but I don't want to tell you. That is not an issue that Islamic banks should do. Islamic banks can only provide financing for things that are known as good. But now, you may have it for good reason. I mean, take for instance, you have a debt and the debt is due, and you don't have much of resources, you want to pay it. Well, you need someone to help you, to give you a loan. A loan is a personal thing. It is given on the basis of trust in you, on the basis of caring about you, on the basis of loving you really, and want to help you. Yes, this is the idea of a loan, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that giving a loan to a friend or to a relative, to an acquaintance, is a very good thing and highly rewarded by God. That we have yani, evidence in the sayings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to that effect. But these things are based on personal trust and should be done only between individuals on the basis of personal trust. Shouldn't be done by an institution that wants to make profit and that collect money from people and promise them to make profit for them. So we send really personal finance to where it belongs, to the personal relationships. So usually when I am asked, then who's the best person who can give you a loan? I would tell you immediately it's your mother, because your mother loves you without condition. She would be willing to give you a loan, even the amount that he want to buy food for her next morning, and she will stay without it and give it to you as a loan because she loves you. So you need love and personal relations and personal trust and personal caring to make loans. And this is why, again, the loan is classified in our Sharia. When we classified contracts, we classify the loan under the category of contributory contracts, not under the category of sale. Sale is meant to make profit, to make increment. And sale create increment, yes, but it is alone is not called like others, like these sales. Okay. The next one, uh, we channel, probably this was mentioned before. Oh no, because we have other things that we don't accept financing them. Also, we don't accept their existence, like options and like not only sale of debt and interest transactions, options and Bitcoin and its like. Yani, my understanding, there are at least two categories of these virtual currencies. One category is in the form is backed by real deposit of same amount exactly. Yani you have say 1 million unit of this virtual currency that is called XYZ, and each unit is worth $1. There is a 1 million US dollar deposited with a depository institution that backed this virtual currency. These are not like the Bitcoin. Bitcoin is only fabricated, mined, created out of nothing. Sorry. So this kind of thing, then we save all the resources that are used in these options, Bitcoins, and it's like the other currency that is backed by same amount of dollars or of other currencies, that is a different story. It's not like Bitcoin. Okay, next. Okay. It should be noted that the prohibition of riba or interest is never meant to be a prohibition of or elimination of material rewarding for finance. Notice, يعني, if we look at the Quran, it's very interesting really to notice this point in our Quran, in our main text, when it says God had prohibited the riba. Just before it, the Quran reads, God has permitted sale, and then and prohibited riba. So sale is permitted, and you look after 4 or 5 verses in the Quran, you have the longest verse in the Quran that talks about debts. It says, all those who believe, when you create debt, put it in writing, so and so and so. Then it goes on with a lot of details, have witnesses, etc. So the idea here, uh, by sale financing, we create debt. So it's okay to create debt through sale, but it's not okay to create debt through loan, because the debt does not increase, but the amount that you give, the commodity that you give has different values, has variant values between people. So the prohibition of riba is not prohibition of earning, seeking financing. So we still can finance with expecting earning, but finance with earning cannot be through giving loans or extending debts, but it should be rather through, as we said it earlier, sale, lease, or sharing. Uh, okay. Now, how do I make this go? Okay. Oh, I don't want this. So we leave this until after, sorry, yeah, the value of realism. Okay. We leave it until after I go for prayer. So allow me to please, I will close the camera and close also the microphone. Assalamu alaikum. I am back.
وعليكم
So
السلام.
uh, the ethical value of realism in Islamic finance is a basic ethical issue. One may earn return only if there is a real value created, and one may not earn a return if there is no creation of real wealth increment. This applies to conditions and structures of all Islamic finance contracts. It also applies to assets, goods, and services that are object of the contract. Uh, Again, in finance, realism is the attitude that financial relationships are always based on the actuality of real life, no additional assumptions, no assumptions outside of it. Interest rate itself is an assumption. Assume that the debt increases, and also the amount of the increase is another assumption. Assume that it increases at certain percent, 7, 10%, whatever it is. Realism means that objects and substances of financial relationships are actually real, and that financial contracts imply and realize their own objectives. That, يعني, for instance, a contract for the difference has no object of at all in it. So it is, because of that, it is prohibited. Trading indexes, sale and buy and owning indexes. An index is not a real property that produces any thing good or bad. It's nothing. Financial realism is a moral value that applies to and interferes in all financial transactions and activities to make them reflect matters as they are in real life, as they are actually on the ground. Uh, Financial realism also means that relations and transactions between the financial institutions are real life transactions, not fictitious, not created يعني, in our minds or in our thinking. Not merely financial exchanges of wealth without increment, without creating increment. There is no reason for exchanging wealth if it does not create any increment. There should not be any room for lack of realism in the functions undertaken in the finance sector and by its institutions, whether they are financial intermediaries or other corporations and persons. So we don't accept the lack of realism on all grounds, by the way, and includes many forms of really securitization, and especially securitization of risk will be even a lot worse. Securitization of insurances. Uh, Realism also means removing objects that do not produce real wealth from the arena of finance transactions. Examples: debts, virtual assets, options, futures, indexes, CDFs, all contract and their likes. Uh, it also means removing transactions that do not produce real added value from the financial transactions, zero sum transactions, gambling, and speculative behaviors, like day trading is purely speculative behavior, and speculative contract like trading indexes, it's only speculative. uh, Pure cash transactions where goods are not intended. Wherever there are no goods that are intended in the transaction, then the transaction is not acceptable in Sharia. We discussed earlier the thing that is called by some يعني some شيوخ and some Islamic financial institutions, which is called تورق. And تورق, the OIC Fiqh Academy, and I was present in that meeting, came to the conclusion and took it as a decision that tawarruq, that is practiced unfortunately by some Islamic banks, is pure riba, because it is a collusion to exchange an amount of cash for a debt, and using the commodity that you sell and buy as only a vehicle to reach this conclusion, an amount of cash against a larger amount of debt due in the future. So for this reason, the tawarruq is considered pure riba by the OIC Fiqh Academy. Uh, the ethical value of moral screening, moral test in financial, that we discussed it really, and I think we may go quickly through it. The moral test in the Islamic finance requires that both the asset and the contract structures and conditions should pass the moral qualification. Give you an example of the moral condition. In conventional lease in Canada for cars, in Canada and in the United States, nowadays I've seen many of these conventional leases. When you get a new car on conventional lease, and if there is a condition which is called closing the gap condition, lease in both American laws and Canadian laws and in Sharia, in lease, the rent that you pay is a price for the usufruct. And this is the way it is defined. You pay it because you take the usufruct, and it is periodical because the usufruct is periodical. So for each month, there is a rent due of certain amount. Whether you pay it at the beginning, at the end, or you agree on the time of payment, that's a different issue. But the rent is the price of the usufruct. The closing gap condition that you don't find in the leasing in Islamic banks, and you find it all over in America and in Canada. This condition says that if a car has an accident in which the car is totaled, the lessee must continue to pay rent until the gap between the balance on the car on that day and the amount paid by the insurance company until you close this gap. So you continue paying rent until the balance that is left becomes equal to the amount you collect from the insurance company. And suppose if the car is 30,000 or 50,000, you got it, and in the first 2 months had an accident in which the car was totaled, you have to continue paying rent because the insurance company is going to pay you, for instance, only 28,000, not 30,000, and you only paid 500 out of the principal of the car during the first two payments that you made. So there is 1,500. You have to continue pay the rent until you cover this 1,500. That is closing the gap condition, which is not acceptable in Sharia because it contradicts The meaning of leasing, which is lease is which is the rent is the price of the usufruct. And here the car is total, there is no usufruct at all. How come I continue pay rent for a car that is already totaled? Uh, okay. So the moral screening then comes even in the conditions of the contract. The Sharia moral principle is that any substance or activity that is confirmed harmful according to the present stage of human knowledge should not be sold, bought, owned, or traded. Consequently, of course, it cannot be financed. This principle is purely scientific, and we apply it today, for instance, on cigarette, the same way we were applying it on liquor. And remember that we don't accept any superstition, any religious opinion in that. And here is an example. There was a religious opinion at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about this bahira and saiba and wasila and ham. These are kinds of adjectives, really, not kind, adjectives of camels. They say ham, for instance, and I don't know the meaning of all of them, but at least I know two, three of them. Ham is a male camel if he was able to impregnate 10 female camels. After that, it becomes ham, means protected from being slaughtered for food. You cannot slaughter it. Even you stay hungry, but you cannot slaughter it. So the verse came. Where did you get these? These are only superstitions. You got them from nowhere. Of course, the revelation gives truth, and it is a final truth. We knew we refused to finance liquor, for instance, even before the issuance of the confirmed knowledge by the American Heart Association and American Medical Association also, that said that the only quantity of liquor that is not harmful is zero. That came only in the last 10 years or so. So did the World Health Organization did something like that also just a couple of years ago. But we knew that from revelation that it was harmful, and the Quran told us its harm is more than its benefit in Surah, in one of the verses in the Surah number 2. So here we take the beyond doubt knowledge. When a knowledge becomes beyond doubt, and that's what happens with cigarettes today, for instance, it's finally confirmed, but people were hesitant for many years before. Cigarette smoking started centuries ago. As a matter of fact, inhaling cigarette smoke or tobacco smoke was a practice in West Africa, and it went to America along with the tobacco as a plant. According to this book, they came before Columbus. And then the European thought that tobacco is an American plant, but it was really an Eastern plant, not American plant. But they didn't see it in the East because all Eastern people did not use it for fun. They were using it for medicine only, as a medical thing for in anesthesia and similar practices. Anyway, so the Quran refuses any claims of prohibition. Sa'iba here in this verse means a female camel. If it gives four times, if it gives birth four times, after four times they consider it that again it should be left in the desert, will eat on its own, and will not be touched and used for riding or slaughtered for food again. And Bahira and Wasila are similar of these kind. Something happens, and it is considered Bahira or Wasila, and they don't touch it after that. When the Quran made it like a joke on them. Where did you get this from? There is no source for that. This is not knowledge. This is pretensions only. Okay. The moral screen, we discussed it. It goes into the three steps, and you read it in that. We'll go quickly on it. Uh, the balance is interesting. A balance in a contract uh, or a lack of balance in a contract is rejected. And uh, you really can't do anything on it. And even consensually is not acceptable if the contract is not balanced. Take an example, giving a loan for increment. This is a contract that is not balanced. You gave $1,000 as a loan. How come you take 1,100 back? And your property does not increase. If you lend me a cow and the cow give birth, it's okay. I give you back the cow and the baby cow. But you lend me $1,000, and the $1,000 does not. It's a debt on me. It's an abstract real value, but it is abstract and mute, cannot increase. So it is as such. How come you take 1,100? And that is really an imbalanced contract. Why interest is prohibited? Again, it is an imbalanced contract. But take other forms of imbalanced contract, like, for instance, an example that I mentioned here. You have to close in leasing, you have to close the cab in car leasing. Uh, Although we have insurance, you have to close the gap. Well, how come? Why do I have to close the gap? If you don't give me, if there is no usufruct available, how come you ask me to pay for the usufruct? And the usufruct doesn't exist. So this is an unfair condition. The condition in a contract that is not fair is always striken, is always crossed out and removed and not acceptable in spite of the consent that is in it. And that may happen in many kinds of contract. Part of it is the overpricing. I think a commodity, its price is kind of well known all over the market, is 10, and you sell it to me for 12. That is definitely overpricing, is rejected also in Sharia. Same thing that applies in banks also. All Islamic banks are charging on murabaha, say 10%, and you want to charge 15%. Why 15%? Should be only 10%, like any other Islamic bank, or like any other even conventional bank. In a mixed economies, the way we have it today all over the world, in all Muslim countries, their financial sectors are mixed. We have Islamic banks, but we have also more, even in most countries, more conventional banks. Few countries, I think probably Saudi now is about 50 or 60% Islamic and 40% interest based. But in there are other, here in Turkey, Islamic is only about 6 to 7% of the total market. So all over we have all these mixed, and charging more in murabaha, more than the interest that is charged by other conventional banks, by other interest-based banks. you shouldn't really charge more than that. So that goes on and applies in it. Okay. Uh, Contractual balance means that justice overrides consent. It also means rejection of any and all financial contracts that give increments created in one's property to the others, other than the owner. One of the imbalance conditions in the contract, this condition that profit and loss are distributed at different rate than the distribution, than the capital contribution in partnership or in companies. The it should be only profit can be distributed at different than the contribution in recognition of the partners who put more of their experience in the project. But in case of losses, it should be um, only in proportion of capital contribution, because a loss is a decline in the amount you had, and it cannot be other than that. So we reject the part of this condition in applying it to loss, and we accept it in applying it to profit. Islamic finance is committed to the ethical value of contractual balance by striking out imbalanced conditions. Finance is contractually affected by meeting of the two wills, whereby each is aware of its own interest and can defend them in a process of contractual negotiation. Imbalance occurs by by inserting additional conditions that do not have counterparts. Okay. Uh, Examples is profit in sharing by agreement, while losses are in the two examples I mentioned. Why losses are only by capital contribution. And elimination of interest, of course, is another example. Let's see. Okay. Uh, okay. Pricing in services and in goods, again, go by the market pricing. Market pricing means really supply and demand, provided supply and demand are not manipulated by any individual, whether supplier or demander or any other party. So the possibilities of manipulation always call for interference from government or from higher authority, could be the ombudsman in the market, and as in the financial market also, any deviation from the general market prices, market level, calls for interference. Balancing monopolistic power by government interference or by the ombudsman interference. Uh, okay. طيب. We'll go next. Okay. Conventional finance and ethical values. These ethical values that we discussed are not always implemented in interest-based banking. The most serious problem arises when we misorient the finance sector by mixing up wealth creation with wealth transfer. The serious problem of interest-based banks is that they thought that uh, يعني debt may create additional value, and debt does not create additional value. So the extra value that the extra amount that the lender takes will come from the proper property of the borrower. There's no other source to it other than the proper property of the borrower. Wealth creation, wealth creation relying on doing an actual transaction, ownership based and making increment. The wealth transfer, when we rely on interest based fake transactions that do not make any increment, and this is in the interest based banking. Interest lending does not create added value, and that means we are confusing. We thought that banks create added value. We are confusing the additional value with value creation. Sorry, يعني value creation with value transfer, with wealth transfer. In when you pay interest, you are really paying part of your property. That is transfer of wealth, not creation of wealth. Uh, Virtual financial assets and speculative transactions are supported in interest-based banking, whereas they are not acceptable in Islamic finance. يعني very often crises are caused and expanded by virtual or fake financial assets, like what happened in the in the crisis of 2008, where options played a major role in distorting the market in New York. Speculative transactions which do not rely on actual ownership or value adding properties. Debt passing to other than initiating institutions. Again, you remember the first big bank that went bankrupt in September 2008. Can you do you remember its name? That's uh, Brothers. What's his name? Uh, this bank that is owned by brothers.
Lehman Brothers.
Yeah, Lehman Brothers. Lehman Brothers was not a bank that deals with individuals and corporation. It only buys debts from other banks. And it was why should it go bankrupt? Because it's based on debt trading only. It was not based on actual financing the real market. It's only all its transactions are debt based completely. Yeah, Lehman Brothers. Okay. And resources allocated to virtual finance away from the real production. يعني, I think we are going to close with this. Oh, yeah, here. Oops, sorry. Let's go back one step. Okay. So the يعني really a major contributor to crisis in the finance sector are lack of justice, lack of realism, lack of balance, and lack of moral screening. With this, yeah, thank you. We come to the close and open for questions. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Any questions?
Yes, Professor, I have a question.
Go ahead, please.
So how can we in the West we stay away from riba as possible? I believe another hadith is if you take riba, it is as if you go to war against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So do we just rent? Is there any other practical ways to avoid riba?
Yeah, by the way, I mean, this is not the hadith, this is the ayah.
Mm,
This is the verse in the Quran. Uh, فإن تبتم فلكم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وذروا ما بقي من الربا. Then after it says فأذنوا بحرب من الله ورسوله. يعني be notified of a war by God and his messenger. So it is a verse in the Quran. Yes, how can you avoid riba? By avoiding transactions with taking loans or giving loans to bank. And if it happens that for any reason that you are giving any interest, you give it to charity or you give the exact amount to charity. And you don't have to withdraw it at that time, but give it to charity. But you don't take as a principle, you don't start a transaction that may earn you interest. There are certain transactions, for instance, in the United States, if you want to subscribe to electricity or to water or with gas company, they may ask you to have a deposit with them. Now,
mhm,
this deposit, the law requires the company to pay you interest on these deposits. The interest you get, you should give it to charity. Don't let it stay with your own money, with your own property, because that mixes it and you would be really eating from it. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam here said, and every meat on your body or on the body of your children that grows out of haram, the best place to eat is the hellfire. وكل لحم نبت من السحت كانت النار أولى به. So with all these, yes, you need to avoid interest as much as you can, uh, paying it and taking it. And we need really to create some other organizations that can make us avoid interest. Nowadays, for instance, in both United States and Canada, for housing, there are several institutions that provide Islamic finance for housing, including the housing cooperative, Islamic Housing Cooperative of Canada, which is I think if I'm not wrong, it is the largest housing corporation in Canada. In Manitoba, for instance, with the help of a gentleman who was there, he was the imam there, was originally from Morocco, very nice person. With his help, and he recruited me for that help, and some other people from Chicago and from Toronto. And we created also with one of the credit unions in Manitoba, we created contracts so you can take an Islamic finance contract. Remember, the prohibition of riba does not mean prohibition of finance that makes profit. So it's okay, yani the finance provider is going to make profit, and finance with that profit is permissible in Sharia. What is not permissible is dealing with debts, whether start a debt by loan with increment or by debt on the basis of increment. For other things, we need really interpersonal support. Like, for instance, and I remember 50 years ago when I came new to America, I found, but I happened to be to يعني they assigned the management to me for about 6 7 years or more than that. But I found there that the Muslim Student Association has created a cooperative lending fund, and we really need to create a cooperative lending fund in any small community, in any community. Sometimes we may grow bigger and may created at the level of the whole United States, like what the Muslim Student Association did at that time. To my knowledge, يعني after I left that and I went overseas in 1981 or 82, 85 actually. Yeah. I went in 1985 after there. To my knowledge, that fund kind of declined later. And then I don't think that it exists anymore. But we should create really. There is an excellent one in Canada, is run by some group in where in Masjid al Rashid, in the same area where Masjid al Rashid is. Uh, there is a Lebanese person there who is the manager really of this fund for lending, yani without any interest. Like cooperative fund, people put some deposit in it just for the purpose of taking reward from Allah, lending for to those who need the quick loans, and they can and settle it within a period of time. Of course, we have funds of zakah in all Islamic centers, and but zakah is only for the poor, not for the borrower. The borrower may not be a poor, need not to be a poor really. A poor should take zakah, but a borrower will have resources that will come to him or her later, from which he or she will make payment. And there is that fund, lending fund in that province in Canada. So we need to create these small funds among ourselves in our smaller communities.
Jazakallah khair.
Allah
Just to
يبارك
follow
فيك.
up on that, if
What?
any to follow up on that question,
Yes,
Professor,
go ahead, please.
if any member of our Muslim community they dealt with getting a mortgage without their knowledge, how would they يعني, keep going?
Without knowing that it was haram.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. They got it. يعني they'll try to pay it as soon as they can. And they have to abide by whatever contract they have and try to make it as soon as they can. Let me also remind you of another thing. In 1999, we had a conference in Detroit, and I was present in that conference, and the late Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi, rahimahullah, was also there, and many other scholars from within United States and Canada, and also from overseas. And in that conference in Detroit, I think end of October or early November in 1999, we met in Detroit and we discussed the issue of housing, especially. So for housing, the resolution came from that conference that families that need housing for any reason, basically schooling, security, and other reasons. You know that in United States and Canada, there are areas it's difficult for a Muslim to live in because of the high crime rate or because of other reasons, very high cost, for instance, or anything. So, and for any reason, including financial, the that decision came that such families may resort to a conventional mortgage with interest, provided They use it, I mean, only for their own use, not for business or investment or anything. So for a house that you live in, this fatwa is there and exists. Although nowadays we have several institutions that may not make you in need for that fatwa for housing. Okay, any other question? طيب بارك الله فيك. If there are no more questions, we'll
Brother,
go ahead, please.
brother, I just wanted to add one thing. For the brother who's looking for a mortgage, there is a verified mortgage lending company called EQRA, EQRA. You can look them up there in Canada. It's a good company. They've been verified by multiple muftis. Alhamdulillah.
Well, there are several in Canada and the United States, not only that one, there are several now. يعني definitely the option is there. There are some who are fake also. يعني since you mentioned one, let me mention another one which is really fake. There is one that deceives people by that. It is called, I think, I don't know if it's still in business or not. It's called loan ijara, loan ijara, or ijara loan, that tells you make a contract with a bank on interest, and then we transfer this to a trust that you create, and then you pay rent. You rent from the trust, you pay rent to the trust, and the trust pays interest to the bank. Well, this is a trick because the trust is you also. So make a trust is only and they charge you $3,000 or $4,000 for this trick. This is a trick and it does not change anything really. You are the one who is paying the interest, and you only paid that extra amount to that company without any need. I don't know if this company is still in business or it went out of business. I hope it went out of business. Okay. Yes, there are several companies now in both the United States and Canada, and also more than one banking institutions. Bank. There are some banks in both the United States and Canada that offer. One of them, I told you, this Assiniboine Credit Union in Manitoba. Okay. طيب يلا. السلام عليكم. We'll see you inshallah next week. Yeah, by the way, يعني, we have only 3 weeks now before Ramadan, maybe two even. But we will have to change the time for Ramadan, of course, because this time won't be suitable for me in Ramadan. We probably can make it like, if it's possible for you, for me, we can make it at 4 o'clock. So from 4 to 6:30, because now it's about 6:40, 6:50 is the Maghrib time. By Ramadan, Maghrib time will be after 7, and we cannot make it from 6 to 8. Okay, so take leeway for these 3 weeks, and or maybe two, yani, depending. Today is 9. I think probably we have 9, 16. We have two more only, 16 and 23. The third one, we probably, to me, we can make it at 4 o'clock. That is, yeah, 4. Yeah. 2 hours earlier. Now it's 10 for you. It's 8 o'clock. Everyone should get up at 8. Come on. Okay, so you should be ready for that, for the 4 weeks.